In terms of a full catalog of his work, that's what we know has just been pieced together from various and sundry inquiries around the country through the years about Chapman. As we like to say, we know more than we did, but that still leaves him in obscurity.
Cass Chapman first shows up on campus in 1874 and then designs King Chapel and Bowman, which are certainly two of the most recognizable buildings on campus, and then also did work on a couple houses that have a long association. We know that he did design Root House, which is now the Alumni Center, and he did design a house for Professor Boyd, which is about a block and a half off campus, and he may have done work on the President's House, although we haven't been able to make a direct link there with him. But he certainly created the landmarks of the college. He started practicing architecture in the late 1860s, and so by 1874 he had only really been a practicing architect about 5 years and a junior partner in a firm for a good chunk of that time. And really I think that the connection with Cornell was just made solely because he did some work for the Methodist Church Extension Committee, which is a group that was dedicated to building churches in the West, and the head of that organization was a man named Alpha J. Kynett, who was originally from Iowa and a Cornell College trustee. Along about 1874, the Board of Trustees felt comfortable enough to actually organize building a chapel building on campus. And what happened is William Fletcher King was out of the country at the time. They passed a resolution to take immediate steps to erect a chapel and engaged Cass Chapman and wound up with the design for what William Harmon Norton called a sort of a demi-cathedral. This very, very huge building, and probably one of the larger auditorium spaces in Iowa at the time it was built.
There's a lot of detail, and there's a lot that's gone. It's hard to imagine the amount of decoration inside this building when it was opened in 1882. Tremendous amount of stenciling, borders up on the ceilings, and all about. We have some pictures that indicate just how elaborate it was, but we don't have a picture of the full building with all of it right there. But these windows are what we call pre-Tiffany, and that means they're the technique before Tiffany comes out with this sort of molded glass, the glass that has ripples in it that can make it something three-dimensional. But this is simply imported glass, American and imported, but the colors are usually imported from Europe. And then there's a stencil put on them, and they're painted, and then they're baked. And that baking process lets the image, the painted image, etc., into the very fabric of the outer skin of the glass. So that's how you get all these patterns.
With the tall tower has a mansard roof. That's that angled roof, and then of course the little grill work on the top that makes sort of a platform. The stonework is laid up the same way as the rest of the structure. Chapman loved towers. The church he built in Salem, Oregon is still the tallest building in Salem, Oregon, and that was built 130 years ago. And he usually included a tower of one form or another in every single design of his that I've found. Of course, they were always very common in structures in that period, in the Queen Anne and stick style, and what we think of as Victorian houses. But his are quite creative. On this building, there are three different types of towers. The mansard tower, the square towers, the round towers. They're all quite imaginative.
Peter Henley's been as successful as anybody could be in finding at least 10 to 12 structures apart from Mount Vernon. But we know very little. As I say, it's 5 or 6 paragraphs for a fairly creative life, which is too bad. But it leaves one with a desire to know a little bit more.